floor to our next speaker, Mr. Fadel Abdul Ghany, founder and president of the Syrian Network for Human Rights, who has been working for 9 years to defend the human rights in Syria. He has contributed, or it has contributed, several investigation reports and has given international humanitarian law trainings. He's a militant and also to militant and human rights defense organizations. Mr. Fadel Abdul Ghany, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much indeed for having me and for organizing this important event. And it's my honor to share our experience with the working team on enforced disappearance and the experience about the disappearance dilemma in Syria. SNHR, Syrian Network for Human Rights, is much appreciate the work of the working team on the disappeared on enforced disappearance. We are in continuous coordination and cooperation with the team since 2011. We have seen tens of cases, and there is actually about 650 more new cases that will be shared soon with the group. We appreciate the team informing us of the government, the Syrian regime response, as well as the development of those cases, which will in return inform the families of them. I would like to point out that the situation in Syria is very complicated and in an urgent action for three main reasons. First of all, the enormous toll of enforced disappearance have reached almost 99,000 citizens Syrian since 2011 till now. Nearly 84,000 of them at the hand of the Syrian regime. This is a horrifying number compared to the Syrian population. This affects actually millions of Syrians and destroy the Syrian society. Second point, the complete failure through 9 years to reveal the fate of those individuals, along with the documentation of cases of death due to torture and poor detention condition. We believe that the forcibly disappeared suffer brutal torture and failed of and that lead us to the complete failure of accountability. Third, the arbitrary arrest and enforced disappearance. The disappearance is still going on. We are still recording cases of arbitrary arrest, and over 80% from the arbitrary arrest in Syria become enforced disappearance. Arrest in Syria, actually, we say this as an arbitrary detention, but it's close to be an abduction. It's carried out by without any judicial warrant. The entity does not identify itself, and the detainees often isolated from outside world and prevent from any communication with their family or any lawyer. Based on all of those points, I need now to move to the families, actually. The families lost the hope in cooperating and registering their relative cases. Actually, the cooperation is the key in this work. This is the most significant challenge facing us, which is increased radically previous year. And they are like greater than this challenges is greater than the security issues and other challenges. Without cooperation of people, we cannot continue our work, and preceding people to cooperate in Syria is extremely difficult. As I mentioned, like we have about less than or around 850 cases, which we are able since in almost 9 years to document, which is a very large figures. But comparing with the actual, what we recorded in our data, which is about 99,000, there is a huge difference, 10 doubles. The majority of those cases, we are unable to continue the information or to take the family approval to share those with the group. This is an extremely challenging and dilemma in Syria. Actually, the rest of parties in the conflict participated in enforced disappearance similar to the Syrian regime. The regime indeed has the largest number of forcibly disappeared individuals. Still, some areas have been subjected to the other forces such as the Kurdish, the PYD, ISIS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and the armed opposition group. For example, what is the fate of more than 8,600 Syrian citizens forcibly disappeared by ISIS? And we all know that ISIS have been defeated, but no one knows anything about them. And there is no serious work to reveal their fate in those areas. The family suffered also from other types of not only losing the hope, but from the network which is established by Assad regime that work on the suffering of the forcibly disappeared and delusion of the people in their ability to give them an information. And in fact, they exploit the people, and often their information is wrong. So this is increase the family suffer. Finally, we fear that arbitrary trial will take place through illegal court, such as the anti-terrorist court, which is an exception court, which does not meet any of the standards of fair trial, does not publish its judgment, and the detainees or the disappeared remains for years before subjected to the trial, and is referred to the form. Actually, it's I consider it as a part of the security forces branches. It's so this court actually issuing sentence which is reached to between 20 to 30 years of imprisonment, even the death penalty, to get rid of those forcibly disappeared who just demand their main, actually the majority of those disappeared in Syria or the detainees, their main accusation that they is based on political demand. Those are requested the change of the government, moving from tyranny toward democracy, toward pluralism. We still actually recording the death due torture. Torture in Syria and enforced disappearance constitute crimes against humanity. And it's a state policy. It's systematic and widespread. The number of institutions participate in this practice is a very huge institution.
Cher monsieur, je suis désolé, je vous interromps.
I apologize for interrupting, but we're running out of time. Perhaps to conclude, I could ask you, what relationship do you see between search and justice, bearing in mind that a certain number of cases are currently open before courts, where there's extraterritorial authority against authors of a crime perpetrated in Syria. Perhaps you could do that in 2 minutes, and that would help us wrap it up. Thank you.
The interpreting was not working. It's I didn't understand the French language.
Bon, tant pis, je repenserai.
Well, apologies then. I will be able to ask the question later again in writing. And at that point, perhaps during the Q&A, we could address it. Thank you very much for your statement. Perhaps do you have 1 or 2 closing statements, given that you arrived towards the end?
Or just in 1 minute end your speech, because you have reached the limit of your time. Thank you. And I will ask you the question again during the
yes, okay.
question and answer sequence. Yes.
Actually, I came to the end. I have one recommendation, that there is a lot of family leagues and the family established an organization. Those organizations based on the families of forced disappeared. I would like to recommend supporting logistically and morally and financially to those organizations to continue their struggle and fighting to reveal the fate of their lovers and held accountable all of the perpetrator who is involved in torture and disappeared them. Thank you very much for having me.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur, pour votre...
Thank you very much for your statement. And for the last recommendation, to assist, including financially, the victims' families so that they can organize themselves and continue to fight for truth and justice.